Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Jamie here.
And Jason.
I was stunned this morning when I saw the quarterback of the Dolphins being carried off on a stretcher, and then they showed the hit and what happened to him after as his hand seized up. And then you see what happened to him last Sunday.
Yep.
He was not fit to play, and they let him play.
So Tua Tagovailoa,
am I wrong?
Tagovailoa, the great quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, one of the young studs of the league, was carted off the field yesterday after suffering head and neck injuries in a really, within the course of play, it wasn't anything illegal, but really gruesome hits. He was sacked, his back hit, then his head really slammed off the turf, and he was taken off. And we've seen this before, that when somebody suffers a concussion on the field, or it doesn't have to be on a field, but it typically is, their arms will go out. And it's a reflex. I've read about this. It's
a reaction that the brain has where, we know that. What I'm getting at is on Sunday, he had a huge problem and he was walking and he was having trouble walking. And there were such clear signs.
Yeah. And in their this is the last game against the Buffalo Bills. He collapsed. He tried to get up after a sack. Couldn't. His legs wobbled out from under him and he fell.
Yes.
And then they brought him to the medical tent.
And I was watching today, Sanjay Gupta was talking about this, where that's a huge sign, a warning sign.
So he was brought to the medical tent, this is last Sunday, and immediately cleared and returned to the game and played the rest of the game. And then this happens where he suffers clearly another concussion. That we've heard nothing but player safety from the NFL for the last 5 years. And this was an abject failure of player safety.
And I saw the coach this morning. I believe it was the coach. He had done a news conference afterward, and basically saying, "Yes, we this is what our we care about the safety of our players. It's our top priority." And it was like, so you're saying nothing was wrong here?
Well, so the coach this is the right thing to say. Said we defer to medical personnel and it's they've.
But at a point, I get it. But at a point when when you have clear signs,
right, the medical personnel. The deference to medical personnel is a good thing when the medical personnel is being very cautious. That's when they don't want coaches getting in and saying, no, we need him, get him back in there. But when the medical personnel is clearing someone who very clearly is not ready to play, the coach has got to other people have got to step in.
Somebody should, because it's so easy to say, well, I'll leave it to the medical personnel.
Right.
If you're seeing a common sense issue where you see this guy can't walk properly, I mean, at a point, you confront the medical personnel and say, what is that? Tell me what that is.
And if you're the coach, you don't even need to confront them. You just say, I'm not letting him back in the game. I don't care what anybody says.
I mean, I would think so.
It's not just the coach. It's a problem with the whole culture. That guy obviously felt physically how he felt, and he did not feel comfortable to speak up and say, something's wrong.
Well,
he's 24 years old.
I
think Jamie's
But players want to play. It's not he's a superstar player. He wants to get back in the game. And every player will tell you, even if they know they have injuries, they want to get back in. It is standing up to those players. And that's why they've really taken it. The NFL has taken it out of the control of the team, of the coach, of the player, and giving it to third-party medical personnel. But here, that doesn't seem to have happened. There's an investigation that the NFL Players Association has undertaken.
You know more about this than me, but I think Jamie's right, that if the culture right now is you should not complain. Mm-hmm. If there are the reality is that if you really care about longevity in the game, you may miss the next game, but it's better to miss the next game than the next season or your career is over, because in the long run, it's going to hurt you if you do it, but they can't speak out or they won't speak out because of the culture. And I don't know if that would change if
I don't think that's right. I just don't. I think that athletes want to play, not because of the culture of pressure to make them play, especially a guy like Tua who's a star and it was a very high draft choice, the whole thing. I think they want to play because they're athletes and they're competitive and they don't want to sit out.
Get that.
Yeah, I just don't. I think Tua, a player, what they've tried to do is take it away from the players. Take the decision-making away from the players because they always want to play. And they want to take it away from the coaching staff because the players pressure the coaching staff and the coaching staff wants them to play because it gives them a better chance to win. That's been the effort of the NFL. But something, to the overarching point we're making here, something clearly failed. There is no way, based on what you saw last Sunday, where he got hit, last Sunday, his head slammed against the turf. He got up, tried to walk to the huddle.
Couldn't do it.
And his legs wobbled and he collapsed. And that was not a physical injury. That was a mental, neurological problem that he was having. Yet in 10 minutes, they put him back in the game. That is
crazy
failure.
Yeah. And, I'm sorry for bringing it back to this. I don't think this whole Tom and Giselle thing is directly connected to this, injuries, but I think that it's part of it.
For sure.
And, when somebody like Giselle looks at this, it resonates.
You bet.
It's funny you said that because the first thing I thought about, he's so young. I thought about his mom. I couldn't imagine. So, a wife also is going to get involved and say, you got to stop.
Yeah. You're right. I'm sure that was terrifying for the for the parents, for everybody who cares about this kid. He's 23 years old. You said 24 years old. The way those arms jut out, it was
ghastly.
It's horrifying. It's ghastly. Yeah.
Okay, we are going to move on. Trevor Noah. So we actually got the tip last night from somebody who was in the audience that Trevor said this, and we couldn't make sense of it. That the initial tip was kind of wrong, which made it sound like it was his last show last night, which didn't really make sense to me. And it wasn't his last show, but Trevor Noah is hanging it up for The Daily Show after 7 years. Actually, yesterday, 7-year anniversary. And he announced that he's leaving the show. We were told by people connected to Comedy Central, and based on what I know, I think this is accurate, that he's just got so much on his plate. He is so busy that it's a grind doing a daily show. Yeah. And he's hanging it up. We don't know when he's going to actually leave. He's working with Comedy Central. Obviously, they need to find a replacement. I am told this is something that blindsided Comedy Central as well as everybody else, that nobody knew this was his plan, but he did it.
I mean, it's been 7 years. He was a no-name in the United States. He was pretty famous in South Africa, as he even says when he was giving his little speech. But it's changed his life. He got a Primetime Emmy. He's been there 7 years.
Oh, he's hugely famous now.
He's hugely famous. He's now dating the most beautiful women in the world, apparently maybe even Dua Lipa. It's time for him to move on.
Is anybody else stunned it's been 7 years?
Yes.
I'm stunned.
Well, you know why? Because of the pandemic.
Yes, time froze.
But I also remember very vividly his first couple days, all the criticism he was given because he wasn't Jon Stewart.
Right.
And, Jon Stewart was a legend and a lion and people loved him. And then Trevor Noah comes in. He was deeply unpopular initially and then quietly just kept doing the show and became sensationally popular.
Yeah.
Good for him.
And I believe, was it Craig Kilborn who first hosted it?
Yes.
When he left, a lot of people thought Jon Stewart wasn't going to...
Jon Stewart completely changed the show. The show was not as politically... It was more of like pop culture.
Right.
And he made it a
very political
satire.
So now the question, who? I mean, this is a spectacular lineup they've had.
Yes.
It's got to be a no-name.
That's what they've done all along. Jon Stewart was a no-name when he joined.
How interesting, though. To me, just in terms of like running that show... What an interesting opportunity, challenge it is to find that person. Mm-hmm. Because now I don't think you count anybody out. Because, fool me once, fool me twice. Everybody counted Jon Stewart out. They counted Trevor Noah out. And now everybody is going to say, okay, I got to give this guy a chance even though I don't get him at first.
Right.
Or her.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think it's, in terms of just producing, it's fascinating to be able to say, I'm going to find somebody you don't know, and I'm going to make a huge star out of them.
Right. So let me ask you a question. We've had 3 in a row, Kilburn, Stewart, and Noah, all of them relatively young, in their 30s, men when they joined. Yeah. Great success, each of them. Mm-hmm. If you're the producers, it's really is time to have a woman host the show, but you've had this tremendous success with a line of pretty good-looking younger men. Do you just stick with that formula, knowing that it works, or do you go and find a woman because it's time?
I don't think this is about men or women. I think they just found 3 really good people, and there are women out there that could do this great.
If they're looking for a woman, you know who would be perfect?
I'm dying to hear.
Do you remember
Jamie
Sarah? Yes, call me. Do you remember Sarah Cooper? She got really famous because she would imitate the Trump videos. She would mouth them along.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember her.
They gave her a Netflix special. She blew up. She's so funny. She's so smart.
Wow.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Have you read that, or did you just come up with that?
No,
right
I just
here
came
on
up
the
with
fly?
that. I came up with that
really
right now.
good.
I think Sarah Cooper would be amazing.
Interesting.
She's an African-American woman, total different, I don't know.
Wow.
I'll accept my check in the mail. Thank you.
I don't think you get paid for that.
So it's interesting. So do you think that there is pressure on Comedy Central to only look at women now?
1,000%. And then everybody's going to hate it. And then, because that's what we do.
Are you doing Trump? Everybody's going to hate it.
I know.
I think it was unwoke men generally.
Yes, no,
voice.
everyone and women, unwoke
Okay,
women.
fair
Yeah,
enough, fair enough.
everyone's gonna hate her, and then they'll either just wait it out and she'll be beloved eventually, or they'll get rid of her and we'll get someone new.
Okay. I just want to make one other comment.
Yeah.
Trevor Noah, I think, is sensational.
Yes.
But when you said he won an Emmy, which was one of the first things that you said,
Yeah.
Emmys are bullshit.
Okay.
Emmys are just bullshit.
Then why do we do anything? Then what is the point of life?
Why do we do it? We do it for the audience. It's like, let me tell you why I think it's such bullshit.
Because you have some?
No. Well, that actually,
Yeah.
but no. But Bill Maher. Now, hold on. And I love Bill Maher, and you know I love Bill Maher. But objectively, it's a hugely important show. It gets a lot of attention. I don't know anybody smarter on television than him. He didn't even get nominated.
Just because you don't have an Emmy doesn't mean you're a loser.
No. What I'm saying is, whether he wins or not, that's not irrelevant. He didn't even get nominated. And it's this woke Hollywood bullshit of, they hate him because he's actually gone after both sides. Bill is a liberal. He's a liberal Democrat. But sometimes he goes after Democrats because he thinks they're screwing up in terms of winning the next election. And he's made that clear. And sometimes he calls them out in their bullshit, and he calls Republicans out a lot in their bullshit. But a lot of people have turned on him because they say, how dare you go after the left? You should only go after the right, which is just tribalism. There's such tribalism in Hollywood. It's crazy. And somebody like Bill Maher, who actually is a liberal Democrat, because he dares to speak against them, he didn't even get nominated. And I think that just proves what bullshit it is.
They're undoubtedly bullshit. All award shows are bullshit. But they are a measure of some fame or whatever. But your point's taken.
Okay. Okay.
He's also a great kisser.
Bill Maher? That was very good.
I think this is really interesting that, a lot of politicians get judged on how they handle natural disasters. And the best example is what happened with Katrina and how George W. Bush did a
His
shameful
presidency fell apart.
Shameful job.
Yep.
He did a shameful job
Yep.
with that.
Yep.
Shameful.
And there's other examples of good and bad. Bill Clinton, it was a natural disaster, but reacting to the Oklahoma City bombing, his popularity was at an absolute lowest low. Oklahoma City happens. He was widely credited for his response to that, and he gained tremendous popularity going into his running for his second term after that. There are legions of examples of people reacting poorly. Barack Obama got destroyed for the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
He lost a huge amount of credibility.
I forgot
early.
about that.
He had to claw his way back from that in order to be reelected. This is a huge litmus test for how well somebody can perform as a politician.
So now we have Hurricane Ian and we have Ron DeSantis. And there is something really interesting about this. Obviously, he is setting himself up to run for president.
Yes.
This was an epic disaster. And the camaraderie between DeSantis and Biden is really interesting.
Really interesting. They have flattered each other over the last couple of days. Joe Biden said that Ron DeSantis they've talked on the phone 5 or 6 times. They have been mutually complimentary to one another. Their responses, they have acknowledged the political differences they have. And by the way, Ron DeSantis has said some horrible things about the president. I'm not faulting him for it. That's politics. But some really awful things about President Biden and his leadership. But they are both making a concerted effort to put those kinds of criticisms aside, to come together, both of them saying that when you have lives at stake, it is no time to play politics with it. And that's interesting. It's a departure, if you remember, from Donald Trump, who said, remember when we had wildfires here in California, he criticized Gavin Newsom. He said he wasn't going to send federal aid to California because of his political differences with Gavin Newsom.
Right.
What a departure from that for both President Biden and for Ron DeSantis.
Well, Trump was despicable for that.
Yeah,
Despicable.
it was horrible. It was a horrible thing. He held a political grudge against Newsom, and he took it out by withholding federal funds for wildfires.
Which is the way he ran his whole presidency.
Right. And so you have a very different approach here. And this is an approach that harkens back to, frankly, a better time of American politics. Just before 2016, Barack Obama never would have done this. George W. Bush never would have withheld disaster relief based on political differences.
I don't know anybody. Well, look, we can't use Donald Trump as an example because he's just
an outlier and everything.
He's off the rails. But it's interesting. I guess Donald Trump does play here because I think, why is Biden complimenting him? I think part of it is because they're in it together.
Yes.
But the other part is that if you prop DeSantis up, you push Donald Trump down.
Yeah.
And I think Biden wants to do that.
That's interesting.
Do you think, Jamie, what do you think?
I was thinking it reminds me of a praying mantis before it rips the head off of its prey.
Who's the praying mantis and who's the prey?
That's to be seen. TBD.
No, but you know what I mean?
I do, and that's a great theory because I'm sitting here really thinking of what on earth, why? I know we all want to help people, but there's always something, and that's a good thing.
It could be pessimistic stage is lip service, and this is what you have to say, not to turn off voters. But if they really said what they wanted to say, they would not be so kind. Just to take a potentially opposing view, and I don't even know, Joe Biden's best chances of winning a second term, to the extent he wants a second term, is Donald Trump being his opponent. I know that's the existential threat as well, but Ron DeSantis is a much better politician than Donald Trump is. And to me, as a Democrat, a bigger threat to the presidency than Donald Trump is.
I get what you're saying, and I've thought about that. But on the other hand, you could say that if Donald Trump doesn't get the nomination, it is going to, look, I'm the only person at this table who has any firsthand knowledge of 1968 because you guys weren't born. Well, no.
I was not. No, I was not even close
to born.
I wasn't even close to born in 1968.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, I was. And there was, Hubert Humphrey and Robert Kennedy and Eugene McGovern and
George McGovern.
Excuse me. And, look, both McGovern and Kennedy were anti-war. Humphrey was kind of stuck. But, at least the two of them, Kennedy and McGovern, I worked really hard for Robert Kennedy. And there was a divide there, even though they weren't necessarily worlds apart. And what I'm thinking is that if DeSantis gets the nomination, there are going to be a lot of disgruntled Trump fans who may not even vote, and that may help Biden.
So it's the thought that the party might tear itself apart.
Exactly.
Right.
It happened in '68. It happened in '68
without question. A winnable election for Democrats as well, and they got annihilated because they tore themselves apart.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway.
There's something to that.
Okay. Last thing, Amber Heard. So she surfaced in Spain. We haven't seen her, it turns out, in 3 months. We looked.
TJ Maxx, right? Last time we saw her?
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Yeah. I never thought of that.
Maxxinista.
And so it's been 3 months, and she has surfaced in Spain, and she doesn't have any movies that are going into production. We checked. But I got to say, I don't think you can say Amber Heard's done. I really don't.
I don't want to, but I think she's done.
Do you really?
I do, and it makes me sick because I don't know what this victory tour that Johnny Depp is on. That everybody he's still. They're both despicable humans. What went on in the relationship was messed up, but I don't know why all of a sudden we think he's this great guy, and she is shunned and living in a different country now and just trying to be with her daughter. And
it is remarkable, even if you fully believe that Johnny Depp never laid a finger on her, and I think the vast majority of people do, and that's a reasonable opinion based on the evidence.
It was the nuttiest relationship.
It was a nutty relationship, and he was at the very least verbally terribly abusive to her. Now, I'm not taking sides at all.
The texts and everything
else.
else.
The texts were really, really
mean,
rough.
crazy drunk, and I don't know why we just have amnesia.
Okay, but it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. Forget about Johnny Depp for a minute. He's fine. Amber Heard on her own. You don't have to if you love one, you don't have to automatically
I
hate the other.
agree, but I don't think we treat women the same. I think she's done. She is washed up old news.
I was trying to think of the people. I was to back your point. I was thinking of all the celebrities who have fallen from grace, and we thought they're done. Robert Downey Jr. being a classic example,
the best.
But I'm trying to think if there's a woman who we thought was
yeah.
done.
I'm thinking. As soon as Jamie said that, I was trying to think myself.
The only person a little bit Winona Ryder. But
she's never really come back. She got a show that happened to become enormously popular.
Yeah.
But she's
not the star of that show. That's true.
And she has no cinematic movie career at all.
Why is that?
Why is she not the star of the show?
No. Why is
that
that women don't get that second chance?
I mean, you need me to break down sexism?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Well,
I honestly...
Because there are women involved too. I mean, half the country is women. So why is it that... it's a really good point, and I'm just... Honestly, I'm asking, understanding that you could say I'm ignorant because I understand the element of sexism.
No, and it's a great question, and the problem is it's so ingrained in my brain, I don't even know how to break it down and explain, I guess, my own feelings. But I think it has everything to do with even appearances, that women age differently than men, and that grosses our society out. When, oh God, wrinkles, she looks tired.
Yeah, but that's
she's
not
34.
But that's not Amber Heard. That's not Amber Heard.
The trial did some damage to her. She does not look like she did 5 years ago.
But I don't think the reason that she might not bounce back has anything to do with her physical appearance. She's still sensational looking.
I just think that there's now a new generation of hotter, younger women. Why do we need Amber? Let's get a freshie.
But that has nothing to do with this trial.
I think there, and I'm just throwing things out here. There is that whole boys will be boys adage, and that doesn't apply to women, right? There's no girls will be girls. It really is that. I think that men are more likely to forgive them their sins, but a woman is tainted forever. And usually it applies to the sex context, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about she really was made to look awful during this trial. She was made to look like she was vindictive and awful.
The jury spoke, and the jury said she lied.
Yes.
And the jury said she lied with malice.
Yes.
So if you embrace the jury verdict, that's a big statement.
Yeah, although I will say, based on what we heard anecdotally on our site and other places and throughout social media, that the verdict against Amber Heard came out long before the verdict of the jury. Like, people had turned against her in a really meaningful
100%.
way before the verdict of the jury.
Almost immediately in the trial.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, we're not going to solve it. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday.